welcome back to Woo Pod. I am Susie, I'm your host, and I'm here today with...
Rick Ross. Hello, everyone.
And Rick Ross is from Newcastle, but he currently lives in Dubai. And we're going to get into lots of fascinating things today. So what have you been up to, Rick?
Well, lots of exciting things, actually. So first of all, I have a cold, which I'm currently battling through, so I'm not going outside much or seeing people, which is very difficult. So as you know, one of the reasons I started the podcast was to socialize a bit more and do more with my life. But yeah, now that I've got the cold, I can't go out as much. So it's
Why can't you go out?
Well, I don't want to give everyone the cold. I think one thing we learned from COVID was not to spread our germs as much, so I'm trying not to do that. But I do have some very exciting news. So earlier in the week, I finally won my pub quiz, which I do every Thursday. Very happy about that.
Wow, congratulations. Who do you do it with?
There's a group of friends that I have in Dubai who are friends of friends from the UK, and we do it every Thursday, and we finally won. We must have done it about 20 times, and we finished second, third, fourth, fifth. Like, we've every position apart from first, and we've come so close, and now we've won. So a pub quiz, it's quite a British thing, I think. So basically, we were talking a couple of episodes ago about activities to do with drinking. Well, a pub quiz is a perfect example. Basically, everyone gets together in a pub. You get into little teams, maybe of like 3 or 4 perhaps, and you all take part in a big quiz. So there's a quiz master, and he asks you questions, like general knowledge questions. Could be questions about history, geography, culture, like food and drink, anything. And you answer the questions as best you can. And then if you get all of the answers right, or if you score more than anybody else, then you win the quiz. And usually you win a prize, like some money, or sometimes you win vouchers for the pub that you're in. So you can only spend it in the pub, which means you spend it on drink most of the time. But it is really good fun. Some are really good. Some are like done on like smartphones now. So you used to do it on pen and paper. There's lots of different things. Sometimes they do physical challenges, like they give you a load of Lego and you have to build like an amazing thing and compete to see who can do the best one. Or they make you do some kind of like fitness challenge. I don't know. There's loads of like weird different spins that people put on them. So I love doing them, and we finally won. So I'm extremely happy.
Excellent. You have to keep your streak going. What is your like specialist topic?
Pretty good at music rounds. Pretty good at film and TV, which usually come together. What else? History, obviously, which is what I studied at uni. Not too bad at sport. I'm okay at sport. So yeah, if those come up, I'm quite happy.
That's very good. It's extremely challenging to have such a breadth of knowledge about all kinds of different topics. So I'm very impressed when people are good at pub quizzes. So yeah, very well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So what else have you been up to? I know that last time we had a few things that we said we were going to try and achieve by the next week. Like I think I had bought a piano book and a Learn Hindi from Scratch book. I have to say I have not touched those, so I have failed. What about you?
Well, I can do even better than that, because not only have I not achieved my goals, I can't even remember what they are. So we're both doing extremely well on that front. But I am doing well in one of my goals for this year, which was to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And for the second time this year, I've got below 80 kilograms, which for me is a huge achievement. I started in January at about 95 kilograms.
Oh, wow.
So I would look very different on this podcast if you guys could see me in January.
That's huge weight loss.
Yeah,
15 kilograms in less than a year.
But there's no like crazy diets or anything like that. It's just eating healthier, walking a lot, all the boring stuff, really.
Okay. And how's your drinking?
It's I drink about once a month now instead of every single weekend, which I think is quite a big improvement.
Okay, so you've managed to drink less over the last week as well. We've got to keep tabs on this now.
Yeah, I haven't had anything to drink since I was back home in the UK, and I was back home for the whole of August. So I had, I'd meet up with friends and go for a drink and stuff, but since I've been back, I haven't had anything to drink. And
Excellent.
I won't until early October, I think, is the next weekend.
I'm trying to think what I've been up to over the last week. No, I did do something really fun, actually. I went to a musical improv class. Have you done improv before?
I've never done improv. I've done stand-up comedy. I've done sketch comedy. I've never done improv. But I do like listening to improv.
Yes, I love improv. It's so funny. You should definitely do it. It's so much fun. So if for anyone who doesn't know what improv is, it's short for improvisation. And it basically means you are completely unprepared and you have to get up on stage and do something. So usually you ask the audience for like a scene or a character. So like, okay, I'm a doctor in the park and this is, I don't know, my gran or something. And then you have to create a scene and try and make it funny with no preparation. So it's obviously very silly. It's just a class, so the stakes are low. If you make a fool of yourself, doesn't matter. It's like, 10 people watching. But this was a musical version, so you have to sing the lines and make up a tune. And the guy on the piano is like doing a different type of genre depending on the scene.
That's amazing.
so
I
good.
did actually see, I saw a musical improv comedy show when I went to the Edinburgh Comedy Festival. This is 2 or 3 years ago now, and it was really, really impressive. Like how well they could create a musical. And they asked the audience what it had to be about, and it was a musical about Tesco. And it was genuinely really good, and I was so impressed at how quickly they made everything up. And it's much bigger in America than it is in the UK. In the
Okay.
UK, we're much more stand up and sketch, really, but improv is becoming bigger in the UK. But in America, they're like experts. They're absolutely amazing.
It's such a skill.
So,
it must
yeah.
be as soon as you hear a word, you've got all of these like branch concepts and especially for singing, you need to get the rhyming words. So you're thinking, okay, park,
Oh,
like
God,
dog,
yeah.
log. Okay, try and make something with that. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
that's
very
so
funny.
hard. What was your improv musical about?
Well, so there was one scene, because they do all sorts of different games, so we just had so many different things throughout the 2 hours. Sometimes people say things that are a bit awkward or make jokes that are really dark. Okay, maybe a bit too far. But there was one scene where we had to, the theme of the scene was hate. So I started off like, I despise your face or something. And I think everyone was like,
Nice.
damn, bit bitchy. I was like,
Yeah, but
what?
it's
It's part of
that's
the
what you
scene.
asked.
Yeah, I felt
Yeah,
like
that's what
everyone's
you're asked to
reaction
do,
was a
like-
bit strong. I was like, come on, guys. It's a joke.
I mean, that's pretty tame for like.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not actually that harsh, or at least not to me anyway. But different people have different ideas of what harsh is.
I think it's the
pretty
fact that I didn't know
tame
this
in my
woman.
opinion.
Like, we'd never met before or something like that. Maybe I was just reading into it. But yeah, maybe people's tolerance for meanness is quite low there.
I think you were just doing your best. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But speaking of humor, we have a very interesting listener question about humor around the world, don't we?
Yeah, so we had a listener question, which was, what are the main differences in humour between Eastern and Western cultures? Oh, such a hard question. There definitely are differences. And what's springing to mind for me from my own experience is things like self-deprecation and banter. So self-deprecation
Yes.
is when you laugh at yourself, make jokes about yourself, like, oh, I'm an idiot, or I just find that often if you do that too much, it makes people very uncomfortable. Like, they're not used to it. If they're like a Mandarin speaker and you make a self-deprecating joke, you're sort of losing your own face. And I think that makes the
Okay,
situation
interesting.
uncomfortable because people's role in the conversation
Right.
is to protect your face and build up your face. So if you're just taking your
Interesting.
face away, it's like, oh God, awkward.
That's really interesting because in the UK it's almost a way of, I guess, not preserving your face, but it is, you are expected to be slightly self-deprecating because it shows that you're not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
And you're not trying to put yourself above anybody else.
Yeah.
So if you were to, it's hard to think of examples, but yeah, if you were sort of the other way and were always kind of trying to pump yourself up all the time, it would be seen as a bit, bragging is, yeah, you've got to be careful with that. But self-deprecation is definitely a big kind of social tool that it's quite important to have in your sort of conversations, really.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
expected to laugh at yourself, not take yourself too seriously. But yeah, that's quite interesting.
It's like a way of bringing yourself down to make sure everyone knows you're on the same level and you're not better than anyone else. So when people from America say things like, I don't know, I was somewhere recently and there was an American person walking past and we said, oh, can you take a photo of us? And he was like, oh, lucky for you, I'm great at taking pictures. And I just thought that's just not something a British person would ever say because it's like boasting, right?
Yeah, that's actually, it's so funny you mentioned that because like the self-deprecation thing, it's not actually Western wide. It doesn't cover the whole of the West at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say if anything, it's more of a British thing, really. I think as well, I remember some friends that are from Germany sort of saying it's not really so much a thing in Germany. Yeah, it
Mm.
has no value as a social tool. It's not you might make a little joke about yourself, but it
Mm.
doesn't carry the same importance that it would in the UK.
Yeah.
But yeah, the American example is it would be absolutely fine to say something positive about yourself, which I do notice with my American friends sometimes. They will just say things like, "Oh, I'm great at taking pictures," whereas in the UK, that would just be like, "Why are you bragging? This is
Yeah, why are
weird."
you
So
it is sort of like, what is the point of saying that? Like, why? It's not like,
yeah,
sometimes it can be received really badly, like, oh wow, you're really up yourself. Oh, I guess it was literally meant at face value. Lucky for you, I'm great at taking pictures. Like it's great for you that I can get some good pictures for you. Damn, I never even saw it at face value like that. I was just like, why would you say that?
yeah, we've got it so ingrained in ourselves not to say anything nice about yourself and actually to say negative things about yourself.
Yeah.
That when somebody does it completely innocently, you didn't even notice and thought they were just being a show off or
Yeah.
rude or something like that.
Or just
That is how
bizarre.
deeply ingrained it is.
Yeah, it's just like one of those things, someone says something and you're like, huh? You just have like a brain confusion briefly. I'm like, why? What's the purpose of this comment? But maybe we're just overly sensitive to it, aren't we? Like, like you say, it's meant innocently. It's not meant to make someone seem better.
I think it's just a big part of British culture. You're just not supposed to put your head above the wall, so to speak. You're just supposed to like keep yourself down and not kind of make a big show of yourself. It's just part of the culture, unfortunately.
What's really ironic is I think it's more of a culture for the sort of middle upper classes. And if you think about it, our country historically has been so divided. So it's like, why have we needed to have this sort of humour? It's probably so that those upper classes can be like, no, don't mind me and all my money and my prestige. I'm just the same as everyone else. So there's not maybe quarrels happening. I don't know.
There's something in that. It's kind of about masking differences and sort of pretending that things aren't as they actually are. I think there's something in that. But it is just something that people do. Bragging is just not acceptable. I think it's interesting though. In other cultures, bragging is also frowned upon. Like I believe, and please, if there are any listeners from this place, it's Japan. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been told that also, at least in Japan, you're not really supposed to brag. But I don't think self-deprecation comes into it in quite the same way. It's not really a humorous thing, but you're supposed to, if someone pays you a compliment, you're kind of supposed to brush it off rather than accept it. But it's not quite the same thing as constantly making fun of yourself and putting yourself down. That's a different thing, I think. So yes, it's interesting. It does pop up in other cultures, East and West, but not quite in the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I think in Japan, it's more about showing utmost respect for the other person. It's like, oh, no. I am just a lowly, person. You are amazing. Like, again, like bigging up that person's face and their reputation or whatever. But what's strange in the UK is if we're constantly self-deprecating, it sort of feels like you're also opening the doors to other people laughing at you as well. And that's kind of the point. You're basically saying, I'm a bit of an idiot and it's fine. I'm okay laughing at myself. And that means you can laugh at me too. We're all at ease. But I think other cultures would think that's strange because you are damaging your ego. Like you don't have strong barriers.
It's like a reputation thing. Why would you necessarily do that to yourself? Whereas, I think you're right. For us, it's kind of an icebreaker. It's a way of getting to know someone, diffusing the tension when you meet someone who you don't know very well, and just kind of getting on with things. Yeah, exactly as you say. If I'm laughing at myself, then it's okay for you to have a laugh as well, and we're all kind of on the same level. It's as you say, it's putting everybody at ease. That's why we do it.
Yeah, and somehow this ties into mean jokes as well, I think, because I think on the whole we tend to be meaner with our humour and just directly insult someone, and it's supposed to be funny. And I just thought of an example of, so I was on this talk show in Taiwan, and there's this guy called Dr. Echo, and he speaks with a British accent, and he loves Shakespeare and stuff. And his whole character is very theatrical. And so I thought, oh, he seems like the sort of guy who would definitely be up for banter. And so what was it? It was a clip on YouTube where he said, if British people say it's interesting, does it actually mean they think it's really boring? And I was like, no, I think it depends on the tone. He was like, well, one time I showed my song to this person and they said, oh, it's interesting. And then they just walked away. And I said, maybe it wasn't the song? Sort of, I guess my joke being like, maybe it was you. But I thought it was like,
Okay.
I thought he could take the banter, and I think he could. But in the comments, the top comment was such a mean girl's reaction, and it got loads of likes. And I was like, oh wow, was that really mean?
Wow.
I don't know. I think my family, like we said last time, tends to be a bit mean to each other.
So does mine, to be honest. And even within the UK, sometimes I'll sort of like make fun of other people and stuff, and other people will sort of be like, okay, that's a little bit too
Too
far.
far,
But
yeah.
I think what you said to Mr. Echo is pretty standard sort of banter. I wouldn't say that was crossing a line or anything.
Because also I had
That's
very much
pretty
had
common.
I had a smile on my face. I was like, maybe it wasn't the song. Like, clearly I'm making a
But
joke
you,
kind of thing. Which I think they got. Like, the
yes.
TV show kept it in because it was probably like a funny moment. And I think he thought it
Mm.
was funny. But in the comments, it was like, wow, what a bitch.
Wow. So maybe at least in Taiwan, you've got to be careful when making. Maybe you've got to know someone very well if you're going to start making jokes about
I
them.
think
It's not
so.
something you can do with somebody quite quickly.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you said about the fact that you were smiling and you tried to make it very obvious that you were making a joke,
Mm.
because this is also something I've noticed sometimes, at least British humor and other kinds of humor, is that we tend to be quite deadpan with our humor.
Mm.
Well, not generally, but a lot of the time when you're making a joke in the UK, you play it with a straight face so you don't look like you're joking. So you know your joke, oh, maybe it wasn't the song or something like that. You wouldn't smile and make it really obvious that you were making a joke. For some reason, we always play it down and don't make it obvious that we're making a joke.
Mm.
I don't know why that is, but it's just a very common theme of British humor, even compared to American humor, which does have some deadpan elements, but more so, it's quite obvious that a joke is being made. And I've noticed this as well sometimes at work, when I work with all kinds of different people. I mean, I think there's 15 different nationalities or something. I'll often say things in a very deadpan way, and then often there's confusion
Yeah.
that I'm making a joke, and it sort of goes wrong, and then I feel a bit awkward. It's just happened quite a lot. So
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit tricky, but because people think I'm being serious when I'm not.
Yeah.
But
And
if
then
I
they
was
think you're
in
really
if
mean
it,
or something. They're like, why would you say that?
yeah, exactly, and it can backfire horribly. But if I was in a group of, say, all Brits, I don't think there would have been any confusion.
Yeah, because I think it maybe takes a while. You
So
process the joke, you realize it's a joke, and then it's like, nice, that's funny. But if you haven't got to
yeah,
the processing that it's a joke level, total confusion.
yeah, 100%. You got to be extremely careful.
I want to tell you about something else I realize that I often have kind of awkward moments as well if I'm trying to use humor to smooth over tension, which I feel like we do a lot in the UK. So like
Yeah.
one example was, so I had a long car journey with a bunch of Taiwanese friends, and this one friend was really excited and she was asking me loads of questions, and I was so tired, and I was like giving her one-word answers, like, yeah,
Mm.
don't know, yeah, maybe, like just totally not engaging the conversation. So ages later, when I saw her again, I thought I'd call out the elephant in the room. That means like
Mm.
maybe the thing that people have been thinking about but haven't mentioned. So I was like, oh, do you remember that trip when I was just so tired and you were asking me all these questions? And she was like, oh my God, like it was so awkward. And then afterwards,
Oh no.
she was like, I'm really sorry. Like, did I bother you? I felt like you were trying to make a point. I was like, no, I was just
Oh
trying to bring it
no.
up and to show that I thought it was funny, to show that I'm over it. Like, there's no tension. Like, I'm fine with it. But she'd perceived it
Mm.
as, you've brought it up because that's a real problem.
Oh no, that's so sad.
Yeah, and I
She
just thought
thought
that's
she'd
so
really like
interesting.
done something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's. I can't. Again, I just would think if you were asking a British person that, yeah, there would be no confusion whatsoever. It'd be obvious that it was just you're bringing it up just for a bit of fun and to kind of smooth things over and let everybody know that it was okay.
And now it's
But
perceived
yeah,
as a
she
funny
took it
thing that
as
happened in the past. Even if what's
yeah,
interesting, I think,
exactly.
is even if at the time it wasn't funny, maybe it was actually a bit awkward that we had different energy levels at that time. Maybe this was not funny in the moment, but somehow we're still, like in the UK, we would still bring that up and make it funny. We would look back at that and be like, wasn't that awful? But now I see it as a funny thing.
Yeah, like enough time passes that you feel it just becomes a funny story.
Yeah.
What is it? Comedy equals tragedy plus time is
Right, there
an
you go.
oft-quoted phrase.
Right, there's even a calculation
So,
for
yeah.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a formula.
Amazing.
So Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to mention
Yeah,
something else related. Maybe this bit can go before when we were talking about boasting. So, like a perfect example of this mismatch in how you talk about yourself and how that's perceived is Meghan Markle. I just think it's so fascinating how Meghan Markle just doesn't gel with British culture at all, because she's so like, oh, I'm such a great person, and look at me for being so nice and kind to my friends, and isn't it great that I have so many lovely friends who love me? Which I get her point is because she's wanting to be positive, but in the UK that's perceived as, why are you talking about yourself in such a positive way? You sound so arrogant. But it's just a miscommunication, I think.
I think so, because I mean, she's quite a famous actor in America, right? So, you've got to be, if you're in that world, Hollywood, TV and everything, you've got to be a self-publicist. You've got to be talking about yourself, putting yourself out there, being very bold, being very direct, like, getting yourself into as many opportunities as possible. And how that would play in the UK, I just think would not work at all. It's just not how we are. It's about playing everything down, a sort of humility. Whether that humility is genuine or not, it's about playing up to that humility as much as you can. Yeah, I just think she came off as just sort of thinking that she was sort of better than it all, which to a lot of royalists they would take quite badly, because obviously they think the royal family and the institution of monarchy is like the best thing ever. So yeah, there's just a kind of instant clash, and from sort of day one it didn't really oh, maybe there was a little bit of a honeymoon period perhaps, but because they got married and everything, but yeah, it didn't end well, did it?
It was as soon as she started complaining, I think people didn't appreciate that. But I mean, what I'm thinking of more actually is, have you seen her TV show? For some reason, I get a lot of these clips appearing, and I think it is because I secretly do enjoy it, because it's just so sort of bizarre.
Okay, yeah.
So the TV show is her. It's sort of like how she hosts her guests and how she lives this quiet life and collects eggs from her chickens and stuff like that. But it just feels very sort of self-promoty, and it's just kind of fascinating.
I think isn't it called like Love Meghan, or is that her brand? Or
I think it's called Love Meghan.
Cringe.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. And it's I think the problem is that this has come too late, because it's come after the sort of furore over the royal family breaking down and them moving to Canada and the book and all the secrets coming out. So the fact that this kind of very warm, cuddly, aren't I nice to everyone thing has come out after that just leaves a very sour taste in a lot of British people's mouths, especially royalists. So I think it's just backfired quite badly.
Yeah, it's a very interesting sort of drama, because I also can see why she might feel like, well, I'm just going to make something that I'm interested in and it's no one's business. If you want to come and watch this show just to hate on me, that's your problem, which I get. But I just find her fascinating as a person.
Yeah, it is quite interesting, and it does touch on a lot of differences, at least within the Western world, America and Britain. It would teach the listeners quite a lot, I think, to sort of look into it and see how it all played out. So, Susie, you've seen quite a lot of at least Chinese comedy, which will give you a better idea of what the differences are, some of the differences between East and Western humour, because I haven't seen so much of that. So it'd be interesting to know sort of what you made of it all when you were watching it.
Well, I have to be honest, I wouldn't say I watch it regularly, because I think it's still very difficult to actually understand a lot of this stuff. Like, especially when you get into references, like sometimes they'll draw on like classical literature or like quaint proverbs or something, or famous people. And I just don't quite have that grasp of all these things yet to be able to understand that. Yeah, I can tell you about a few things that are quite interesting. So traditionally, in Beijing, they've got this thing called xiangsheng, which is called crosstalk. And you usually have two people on stage. And it was developed, I think, in the 1800s. So that was like Qing Dynasty China. And they usually have the Dougen, which is the sort of main joker. So he's the one kind of talking to the audience. And then you've got the Penggen, which is kind of like a sidekick. He's often like kind of the idiot, just sort of chiming in now and then to sort of encourage the flow and sort of have a bit of back and forth and a bit of banter. So who do you think would be the Dougen and the Penggen of us?
Okay, so one is the main guy making lots of jokes.
Yeah.
The other one is the sort of feeder guy.
Yeah, I think I'm the Penggen.
I hate to say it, and I don't want to look like I'm bragging because we've already spoken about that.
Gosh,
but yeah,
so
I think
arrogant.
I'd be the
The
with
arrogance.
Dogan. Yeah,
Oh, the
I
cheek.
know, terrible. But
But
yeah, I think so. I don't know. We both make a lot of silly jokes, really. But this is really interesting because we sort of have a kind of similar vibe in a lot of double acts in the UK, which
hmm
means a two-person comedy routine.
hmm
And usually you have the joker guy, and then you have what used to be called, at least I think it's called a straight man, who's the
mm,
one who's sort of like the jokes are being made at him, or he's supposed to react seriously, like to make it funnier. So
yeah.
there's like a kind of main guy and a sort of supporting guy. So
Yeah.
it's not actually too dissimilar, the dynamics. This sounds more of like what you're saying with the, how do you say again?
Pungan.
Pungun. He sounds more like a sidekick,
I might have
which
described
is
that a bit more. Like he is still very involved, and they have a bit of
mm,
chat. But it was more like he's sort of encouraging and
helps.
feeding the topics rather than establishing the conversation.
Okay. Well, it does sound pretty similar. Yeah, definitely there's a long history in the UK of double acts, and there is always one who's kind of a bigger personality than the other,
Hmm.
and he's making more jokes, and then the other guy's a bit more serious and kind of like feeding the other guy, like helping him like make more jokes basically. So
Hmm.
it's really interesting that. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is like just two of them are on TV, they're just performing on stage. They're not
Yeah.
like in a sitcom or anything.
Yeah, it sort of feels a bit similar to improv, I guess, in terms of style. Like very simple, two people on stage, except it's rehearsed. So they just make it seem like it's on the spur of the moment
Yes.
kind of thing. But that's been
Okay.
really popular sort of ever since. Like they still do it now. They even do it in Taiwan. Although Taiwan sort of spurred its own scene, like I would say more American inspired, like stand up comedy. Oh, another thing that's interesting is these talk shows. I don't know if you've seen
Oh,
talk
yes.
shows where they've got the like loud sound effects and like boing and like different stuff.
I've seen bits and pieces of it on different shows. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very what we'd call slapstick,
Yeah.
basically.
And I think the
Yeah.
jokes usually tend to be more in your face, less subtle maybe. Like there's not so much of this
Yes.
dry telling a joke and having a straight face, I don't think would go down as well. But then there's all different types of stand up coming up as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it seems to be spreading around the world. I've read that it's stand-up's becoming a lot bigger in China. It's huge in India, but it's very much. I mean, as an art form, I think it pretty much began in America. So it's that
Mm.
classic talking on the microphone. You might have a stool there as well, the microphone stand, and you're just like making jokes. And yeah, usually it's a mixture of like storytelling, but also like jokes. And yeah, that's the traditional sort of blend, really. But yeah, that seems to be kind of almost global now.
Yeah. And then there's also these sort of late night shows where you've got the one
Yes.
guy kind of talking to the camera. Like, so you've got sort of spin-offs of, I guess, Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver types. In Taiwan,
Yes.
you've got a night show with Brian Sung. So he's sort of very similar
Okay.
type character. There's very political,
Yes.
taboo, like talking about public figures and stuff like that.
Wow. Okay. Well, again, yeah. That's a very American format, and it's actually a format that sort of it has come to the UK, but it doesn't quite work in the same way. We have what you call a chat show, where you come on and somebody interviews you and asks you, normally a celebrity, and they're doing something new. So the point is to like publicize yourself, and they'll chat to you a little bit. But in America, there's a kind of late night thing of the presenter comes on at the start, and they'll just tell a load of jokes, which are written for them by a writer's room of like, I don't know, 10, 20 writers, maybe more. So they do their opening monologue. Then they get into interviewing the different people who come on the show. They might interview a comedian who then does their own little stand-up routine on the show, which used to be a big way of like getting your name out there in America. So it's a very set kind of genre. And obviously it's called a late night show. It's on very late at night, whereas chat shows, I guess, prime time, sort of like early evening, I think, in the UK. So yeah, the American chat show it's a very specific type of comedy. It's a very specific genre of like interview and joking and stuff. But it's very easy to kind of export that all over the world because you just find those charming hosts in each country and they can just have their own show. It's very easy to kind of get going. You get a few writers on board and then you're away. So it's no surprise that the format has become globally successful. But it is, yeah, it's not quite the same in the UK, but it's similar enough, I guess.
Well, the most similar one I can think of is probably Graham Norton.
who is an Irish comedian. I think he started in the 90s. And then he got his own show, maybe even like 10 or 15 years ago. But
Yeah.
he's the biggest he's like the chat show king in the UK, pretty much, on
Yeah.
TV at least.
I was just going to say, yeah, he tends to get several celebrities on at the same time, 4 or 5 together on a sofa, rather than just the one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not him just doing stand-up as well.
Yeah.
He's just chatting. And it's a bit more relaxed. The American chat show style feels very like...
Pre-rehearsed.
That's exactly the word I was looking for. Like very, very slick, very sleek, very pre-rehearsed, very well-honed. I think the UK one is a little bit more relaxed, downplayed, spontaneous. Yes, exactly. So, yeah.
There's quite a lot of these talk shows where they invite foreigners. Like in China, there's this one called 世界青年说. What I think is interesting about it is that it's always men. Well, so it's a male-only show, but I was looking into it and I couldn't really find many famous female comedians or talk show hosts at all. So it seems very male-dominated. But in Taiwan, you've got quite a few that have more women. So there's WTO Sisters, which is on YouTube, and they invite all sorts of people, but mostly foreigners who speak Chinese.
Okay.
I actually got invited to be on this show.
Amazing.
I had to decline because I wasn't in Taiwan. And
oh, no.
I think it would also be quite nerve-wracking. But they seem to be quite kind, I think.
You wouldn't have gone just for anyway?
What,
sounds awesome.
Flown over to Taiwan to be on the show?
Yeah.
Maybe one day. I don't know.
You should have gone. I think you've messed that up. You should have gone. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I guess like they'd probably do rehearse to a certain extent. And it seems like it's quite tame. Because my fear would be that you go on one of these shows in the UK and they just take the absolute piss out of you. They're not likely to be kind. They're trying to sort of tease you. But I think in Taiwan it's much kinder. Like it seems sort of more about listening to their stories. There's some anecdotes and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you would have had to do a bit of preparation because you need to know like where to sit and like, you know, which camera and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I don't think you would have had to have actually prepared like a load of stuff. It's not like you're performing. It would be quite easy going, I think.
If you're watching this, you might be interested in different cultures, maybe the UK specifically, maybe you're someone who wants to improve or practice your English. Let's face it, learning English at school was tedious for a lot of you guys, but since leaving school, you might have found that it would actually be really useful if you could speak confidently and articulately about a range of topics in English. Why? Well, it can open doors to higher paying jobs, improve relationships at work, get you into an English-speaking university, and allow you to actually enjoy the experience, and even help you settle into an English-speaking country long-term without feeling disconnected and isolated. 但是英文要怎样才可以更上一层楼呢? How do you get past the plateau? As a language learner myself, I often find that beyond the basics, you end up having to figure out a lot of things by yourself. Why do people behave like this? What do they mean when they say that? Why are there so many everyday references that I just don't get? It would be so helpful if someone could just lay it all out clearly so you can deeply understand the culture at the same time as improving your language skills. 那为什么学英文的同时也要了解文化呢? Well, without culture, language is kind of inert. It'll get you communicating, but it won't get you understanding local people and the way they think, which is ultimately how you can make true connections in a different language. 语言不就是拿来跟真人互动的吗? Think of all the stuff you know about your own culture. All the books, films, famous references, politics, history, stereotypes, trends, humor. You take it all for granted, but it forms the basis of your worldly knowledge. And it differs drastically around the world. We just assume people are on the same page because we've got this full sense of connection through the internet. 问题是，不少人习惯把母语的说法直接翻成英文，觉得对方一定懂，结果却常常产生误解，或者意思往往南辕北辙. You see, it's hard to understand a different culture on your own. We're basically talking about transplanting a different cultural brain into yours. We here at CZWU have put together the ultimate learning journey for you. 全方位英语文化课程. We've blended self-paced and communal learning in our very own little online university, or Wooniversity. Rather than just passively learning through the internet or using language apps where you feel like you're in a vacuum, you'll learn through weekly bite-sized videos and tutor-led sessions so you can practice what you've learnt and make sure you feel that continuous sense of progress. 别让你之前的英文成果慢慢流失，也别再让你学英文的动力摇摇晃晃了。今天就开始行动吧。This is your one-stop shop to boost your English. And if it doesn't become your new favorite thing, I'll eat my hat. 報名即將截止，趕快到 czu.com/culture 了解更多課程詳情吧。
But yeah, you should have gone. You could have been part of, I don't know, you could have been on TV and everything. I definitely would have gone if I got an invite. Yeah, but never mind. Maybe you'll get invited again. Who knows?
So I think that's probably about it for today. We can probably leave it there for today. So if anyone has more questions for us, please send them in. We would love to answer them. And thanks for listening. I'm Susie.
And I'm Rick. Thanks for listening, guys.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.